Hey, what's up? So, I think it's time for you to change. And the thing about change is that I don't think you're going to change unless you actively try to change. And a lot of people assume that as you grow older, you automatically get more mature and change because you go through certain life experiences. And I'm sure that happens a little bit, but I really don't think that even if you go through these experiences, if you don't actively try to change, you won't actually change. And that's because if you take a look at how many people we have in the world that are like 40 or 50 or 60, and they still act like children, right? Because they never actually took the time to try to mature and change. And a lot of people out there have a lot of problems, whether it's like emotional problems or anger issues or, relationship problems or whatever, problems with money, is they just never took the time to change themselves in order to not have these problems. And the thing about change and why I think you should change is because if you don't change as a person, then your relationship, your situation will stay exactly the same, right? Your situation will not change unless you change yourself, right? You can't actually change the situation unless you become a different person, and you can't really accomplish all the things you want to accomplish unless you become a different person. If you could, then you would have already accomplished those things, right? So I think you actually actively need to change if you want to accomplish your goals, right? Because you have to be a person that will actually do these things versus the person that you are currently. And I think you should be looking to change at any age because there's not really an age thing. It's just whether or not you want to do it, right? So no matter how old you are, you should always be looking to change for the better. All right. So I think on how to change is pretty straightforward. I think there's only two things you gotta do. Is one, you change the way that you think, and then two, you change the way that you act, right? And these things kind of go in a little bit of a feedback loop. So let's say, for example, if I think a certain way, I'm going to act a certain way. And if I act a certain way, I'm going to get certain results. And those results will cause me to think a certain way, right? And then, like, for example, if I think very confidently, I'm going to act confidently. If I act confidently, I'm going to think more confidently. It's like a flywheel, right? But it could go negative as well. If I think I'm, you know, if I think I'm a loser, I'm going to act like a loser. If I act like a loser, I'm going to think I'm a loser. So it reinforces, right? But I don't know if you have to start at to change the way you think. I think you can also just change the way you act. Like people say, fake it till you make it. I think that works as well. So if I act very confident, even though I'm not confident, at some point I'm gonna start thinking more confident. So ideally, I think this is how you start. This is how you change. Is you basically change the way you think, you change the way you act, and it kind of goes in this feedback loop. So I think it's important to understand that you are essentially just a bundle of habits, right? How you feel, how you think, how you react to things is all a habit that you learned as you've gone through life. And you've gone through years and years of these things, and you developed a way to react immediately or naturally to these things that happen to you, right? And a lot of the time, you know, more than I would say most of the time, you probably don't even realize that these are habits, right? So if you see something, you think something, right? But like, why do you think something? It's because you've seen this thing before, right? Or if someone says something to you, react a certain way. Why do you react a certain way? Maybe you're protecting yourself from something that happened in the past, or you acted this way your entire life and it benefited you, or whatever. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that it's not you're not thoughtfully putting your actions into place. It's like you're just reacting to stuff. Another thing that you want to take into account is like all the ideas and thoughts and everything you had today, you had yesterday as well, right? And you're gonna have tomorrow, and you're gonna have the day after that. And without new ideas, you're probably gonna act the same way. So basically, what I'm telling you is that you're just repeating habits. So before you change the way that you think in order to change the way that you act, I think the best case or first initial thing you gotta start doing is you gotta start understanding how you think, right? Understanding why you are the way you are and start paying attention to things that you haven't noticed in the past, right? So as you go through your day, you're doing certain things, you're thinking certain things, you're acting a certain way, and I just want you to start to notice these things. Okay. So a lot of people, including myself, have problems where they just look at their phone all the time, right? And it becomes an issue because I'm now replacing like, you know, I'm putting my mind on autopilot, so I can just look at YouTube Shorts or whatever. It's like useless information, and it passes the time. I'm happy when I'm doing it, and then when I stop doing it, I'm like, oh my god, why I just waste all that time, right? So I think one thing you could do, two birds, one stone, is instead of looking at your phone, you start replacing that time with self analysis. So it's like, why am I acting a certain way? Why do I say certain things to people? Why do I react a certain way? Start just analyzing yourself, right? And I think the most important thing is, does this help me? Because if it doesn't help you, then you should stop doing it. If it does help you, then it's fine. Just be aware of it, right? And it's pretty simple. And like, just start thinking about these things as you're going through it. maybe don't think about them like as you're actually going through it, but like you can reflect back later on when you're not talking to anyone and start really, really analyzing it, right? So for example, for me personally, every time I talk to someone, I noticed this for the last, I don't know, 10 years, is whenever I talk to someone and they have some fancy job, right? I feel like bad, right? And then like I never really thought about it, but I just like always felt kind of bad. And then if I dove a little deeper, I'm like, okay, bad, what does bad mean? I dove a little deeper. I feel insecure. Okay. Like why do I feel insecure? Is because I feel like I get a job like they have, right? And then I'm just like kind of going through this feeling. So then I would react a certain way to it, or I would like try to protect myself a certain way, right? And then like when I really, really thought about it, I'm like, okay, like where did this come from? And it actually came from like this time when I graduated from college. I was like 22, 23. I couldn't find a job out of college, right? And it was really competitive. I couldn't find a job. And then that's what caused that insecurity. But like now 10 years, 12 years later, I haven't thought about that situation for a long time, but I still act a certain way about it, right? And then after I realized that I like that's where it came from, then I could be more aware of it, and then I could actually feel better about it because I just like realized, okay, that's like 22-year-old me like realizing certain thing. And then now when that happens again, I actually don't react anymore because I've like acknowledged it and I've kind of let it go. Right. I've noticed that this feeling doesn't benefit me at all. It's actually something that came from when I was like 22. It doesn't matter to me anymore. Like I can just let it go. I don't need to protect myself anymore. All right. And then in certain situations, I've noticed that like if there's a silence, I just like have this urge to try to say something funny or try to crack a joke, right? And I don't like I just do that all the time. I never realized I have this urge to do it, and like I don't know why I do it. I actually haven't figured out why I do it, but then I figured it doesn't really hurt. It actually kind of benefits me sometimes. So like I don't try to stop it. I just let it happen. But now I'm aware that I'm doing it, and then like I don't know if that benefits me or not, but like at least I'm aware I'm doing it, and I'm just more aware of myself, right? Another thing is like I always rush certain things. Like for example, when I'm trying to go somewhere like with my wife, I'm like rushing her. Like I'm always rushing her. I'm always rushing her, and I'm like, okay, like why am I rushing her? And like I think it's just because like when I was a kid, like my family would always rush out the door because we're always late or whatever, right? So then, like, I try not to be late. So then if I'm aware of that, I can just control my emotions. So I'm not super in a rush, right? So like just very little things. These are all very little things, but these are things that you can start analyzing yourself on. And then I just kind of got to know myself a little bit better. And I'm like doing this at 35 or 30. Yeah, I'm turning 36 soon. So like I'm noticing these things like way later. These are all really small things, but I think the more you can think about, the more you understand yourself, the easier it is for you to say, okay, these are things I want to change and these are things I want to keep. And you can do it in a way where you're cognizant of what's happening versus just reacting all the time and just like reacting blindly. So that's another thing is like you don't need to react, right? I think I think it's really important. This point is like you control how you feel, right? You control how you feel. Things can happen to you. People can be mean to you. People can say bad things to you. Bad things can happen to you. Whatever. But ultimately, you control how you feel, right? I was talking to my friend the other day, and he was talking about how like he was talking to people at work. He would get mad, and I'm just like, why do you get mad? And he's like, oh, and he's just like really certain. I was like, these things happen. Like, doesn't that make you mad? And I'm like, these things happen to me at work as well, but I don't get mad. I'm just like, I just let it go, right? And then he's like, oh, okay. So then like, I think he's just so into it where he just thinks that he has to get mad because it happened that he doesn't realize, hey, these things can happen and I can not get mad. They're mutually exclusive things, right? So I think it's really important to understand like whatever happens to you, you can take a second, just breathe into it, and then just relax, and then choose how you want to react, right? And that would be one way of breaking the cycle of you just reacting to things. So yeah, I think understanding yourself is really, really important. And then this practice will help you understand yourself a little more. And I think the reason is because one is you don't let your emotions control you, right? Now you're in control of everything that's happening. And it stops you from doing things that you probably don't want to do, right? It stops you from doing and thinking and acting in certain ways that may not be in your best interest. And then you also don't let external factors control you as well, right? Because if I'm going to let external factors determine whether or not I'm happy or sad, then I'm guaranteed to be sad at some point, right? And I'm guaranteed to not be happy at some point. And happiness comes from within, right? You could be happy in certain situation, and then someone else could be in the exact same situation, they would be unhappy, right? So it's like you choose whether or not you want to be happy, right? And I think if you are able to do this because you're choosing whether or not you want to be happy, it's a lot easier to be happy. So this is why understanding is so important, and that would be like step one in changing yourself. So step one is I think is understanding how you think and feel and act. Step two would be practicing how to think, and step three would be practicing how to take action. So if you're interested in step two, step three, I'll cover that in a later video. Just leave a comment and I don't know, whatever. Subscribe, and then also join my my wait list for emails. And then yeah, see you next video. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks.